Hi, I am Christopher Luna. This is a reading with sort of two prongs to it. It's a 100,000 Poets for Change reading. 100,000 Poets for Change is a global movement started by the poets Michael Rothenberg and Terry Carrion in Guerneville, California, who were very, very angry about the BP oil spill and how that was handled, and very innocently posted on Facebook about we should have a 100,000 Poets for Change movement, and now it's, I guess, 4 years later, and there are hundreds of events all over the world, in every country that you can think of represented, and certainly throughout the United States. And so I want to say hello to them, because this will probably be seen afterwards. Say hello to Michael and Terry, and also to our friend David Magdalene and David James Randolph, who have something called New Way Media. And tonight we have for sale two anthologies that David Magdalene of New Way Media edited, Continent of Light and World of Change. Both of those are anthologies that basically would not have existed without the 100,000 Poets for Change movement. And then we are also here because this is the centennial year for William Stafford, who is celebrated in the Northwest and throughout the country. And so later on we're going to hear from George Thomas, and any of you who might want to share a Stafford poem or something inspired by some of those ideas. And Stafford very famously was a conscientious objector, and during World War II, which is a tough time to do that if you're going to do something like that. And so I kind of felt like he fits right into 100,000 Poets for Change. So I want to begin with a poem by my friend David Magdalene. That's at the beginning of this anthology, World for Change. It seems like a good way to begin something like this. It's called Invocation. The politicians have failed us. The corporations have failed us. Organized religion has failed us. The media has failed us. The military has failed us. It is the poet who must serve as catalyst for world peace and survival. For it is the transformative vision of the poet that breaks down and breaks through all, that divides us to find the brother and sister on the other side. The poet who has reclaimed his or her primeval power, indistinguishable and undistinguished from singer, dancer, warrior, prophet, maker, builder, creator, leader, healer, shaman, teacher, seeker, preacher, explorer, painter, poet. Assert your birthright. And so the poem in the book that follows that is called Tunisian Jasmine. I'm going to apologize ahead of time. I'm going to do the best I can with the pronunciation here, but this is a poem written by someone named Mohammed Al-Ajami, and he is currently serving 15 years in a Qatari prison for having written this poem. It's called Tunisian Jasmine. Mr. Prime Minister Mohammed Al-Ghanouchi, if we consider your power, it doesn't come from the Constitution. We are not nostalgic for Ben Ali or for his times, for they represent merely a dot on the line of history. Dictatorship is a repressive and tyrannical system, and Tunisia has announced its people's revolt. If we criticize, it is to criticize what is base and disgraceful. If we praise, we do so because of conviction. The revolt began with the blood of the people and has painted liberation on the face of every living creature. Tell those who hold mourning shrouds that all victories bear tragic ordeals, but tell them to pity the country that lets itself be governed by ignorance and believes in the strength of the American military. Pity the country that starves its people while the government rejoices of economic success. Pity the country whose people go to sleep citizens and wake up poor and stateless. Pity the system that inherits oppression until we shall all become slaves. When shall the people realize their power and choose our government? Enough with tyrannical regimes. Tell the ones who torment their people that tomorrow someone will take your place. The country does not belong to you and your children. The country belongs to the people, and so does the glory. Repeat in one voice for a single destiny. We are all Tunisians in the face of repression. Governments and those who lead them without exception are thieves. The question that frames the thoughts of those who fear will not be answered by any official representative. Why, if we import everything we have from the West, why can't we import freedom and our rights? In America, it feels like often we're justifying ourselves or helping to convince people that poetry is worth paying any attention to at all. So I know how heavy it is, the idea that obviously we as poets believe that our words have impact and have power, but then to think about the possibility of being jailed for that, I think most of us just can't even imagine that. So one of the reasons that I'll keep doing 100,000 Poets for Change is really in solidarity for those people all over the world who've been silenced for any reason and by anybody. So the way that World of Change works is that the call was put out to write a poem on any subject, but also to write a little piece about why you wrote the poem, what it means to you, and sort of what you think you're doing to help change that, whatever it is. So I'd like to read my poem from this book. It's called Love is a Radical Act. I was very happy to be asked to write and read a poem for my friends Kelly Kygwin and Sam McKenzie, who fought very hard to get gay marriage legal in Washington State. They were really out there every day and campaigning on that, and they put together a really beautiful project called Love is a Radical Act. It's very simple and very positive. They are ceramic hearts that they give out and sell, but only sell to create more of them, and then they're hung on trees or hung outside businesses, hopefully leading people back to the website, which has the message that, you know, that gay marriage or marriage between, you know, people who are consenting adults is okay, you know? So this is the poem that I wrote for them. Love is a radical act. We all need to be loved. Every one of us long to be held and adored, reminded that we are deserving of respect, tenderness, and joy. Each of us longs to be touched by another who knows us so intimately that each fear, each triumph is experienced as their own. There are those whose hearts are so filled with ignorance and hate that they are arrogant enough to claim that their love is better than yours, somehow more real, more natural, more holy. Do not let the poison that infects their hearts prevent you from savoring a single moment of the life you have built together. It is truly wondrous to find a partner with whom to share this adventure, one who stands beside you through every disappointment and indignity and supports every accomplishment. This love is righteous, kind, compassionate, open, a radical act, the strength of which cannot be measured by anyone but you. Let us learn to accept love. Let us learn to celebrate the miracle that binds us wide-eyed, impermanent, and interconnected in the perpetual unfolding of the present moment. That was my poem for my friends Sam and Kelly. And we're going to hear from some of the other people who are in these books. And I just want to say, really proud to be a part of 100,000 Poets for Change. I hope that it continues. And when I have an opportunity to sort of mentor and talk to writers, this is something we work on a lot, which is just, you know, I tell them that there are no guarantees that anybody out there will support what you're doing or believe that poetry is valuable or that poetry can have an impact. You have to really experience that before you can believe it, and they've been given a lot of sort of negative messages about that from the culture at large. So it starts with us, like we have to own it first and believe in ourselves before we can expect others to pick up on it. And I do believe that when we do speak from that place of strength and belief in self, that you don't have to make speeches like I'm kind of doing right now, but just the work kind of gets that message across. So thinking about how we carry ourselves, I think, is worth doing for poets in this sociocultural context. So now I'm going to invite Toni Partington, my life partner, fiance, and partner in Printed Matter Vancouver, who also has poems in the anthology, to come up and read for you now. So please welcome Toni Partington.
Thank you, Chris. You can just do that. How's that? Yeah, not bad, huh? Okay. It's really, for me, delightful to be a part of this international effort. And when I was thinking about this earlier today, and I thought, there are thousands of people around the world doing what we're doing right now, which is to share something that we've written, that we feel strongly about. And if there is one person in the room, if there's 100 people in the room, it goes from one to the other, and perhaps it makes an impact, perhaps it is something that can change or at least begin to sort of get this momentum of change in the world. That this is a way to unite people who have very different political, religious, socioeconomic, all of the other things that in our world seem to pull us in different directions and seem to create conflict because we have differences, that perhaps just sharing our words with other people can build a bridge. So I'm very honored to be here to do that, or to try at least. Most of what I write, and I have been writing since about age 10, so many, many decades now, most of what I write is social commentary. I spent a lot of years as a social worker, and it's just that certain things really spark my interest in wanting to talk about them publicly or write about them. I want to share this first poem with you, and this is about global warming, whether you believe in it or not. I'm going to pass this around so you can take a look. This is a satellite photograph of the Alto Golfo Biosphere Reserve in Mexico. These look like tree limbs. In fact, this is part of a river, and this is what was a lush river in 20 years has become a withered, dried out river, and this is the Colorado River Delta from the satellite. So I'm going to pass this around so you can look at it, because my poem is based on this photograph. The poem is called Earthly Visions. View from above. Visions like trees in fall or spring, the outline sheds and buds conspicuously. Tentacles, pawing hands with plumed fingers reach to nourish by instinct. Patience is a virtue, and we have no virtues left. The sun will rise and set as sure as yesterday, while veins of earth wither, merciless. The source is dry. Tomorrow the fingers become dust until all the limbs are gone. Dry, shriveled dry. Swollen tongue dry, cracked lips dry, so dry it hurts to look, and your eyes bleed. Taunted by dust devils, I can forget that rivers shrink in one lifetime. The remains are fish skeletons with hollow bones. Will it help to whisper the truth? Point out the obvious to non-believers? Will it matter to conserve your bodily fluids if the ground is already hardened with caliche? Sleep does provide a balm. Waking hours are the hardest. There is no reprieve. Dry, parched dry, bleach, bones dry, salt, flat, dry, so dry you await the slug trail like nectar on tongue. I wrote this poem some time ago, and I was lucky enough to have it accepted into Continent of Light. It is a poem that I wrote in 3 voices, and there's a chanting or a singing that goes with this poem, and I've performed this on several occasions with Eileen, Elliott, and with Christopher Luna. I'm going to perform it by myself tonight, but I have enjoyed so much being able to perform a poem that I wrote as a collaboration with several voices. My challenge is to be able to hold the book and the bell at the same time. We'll see how that goes. This is based on a documentary that I watched about the Grand Chartreuse Monastery, which is in France, and it is a monastery of silence. And so there is no speaking that takes place. And what I wanted to do is to just think about when we speak, we always hope that we're speaking to someone that might listen to us. And what do we do when we don't use our language to communicate with one another, and how terrifying that can be. We have words and language on a daily basis. We're inundated with it, and we live that way. So I was really taken by this particular documentary and these monks. So it's called Living Silent and Austere in Grand Chartreuse Monastery. Behold, the silence, some say impossible for those with language. Human noise, a retort like shrieks from a pinprick or a pinch of skin between fat feathers. Holy bells, call monks and wayfarers, join under dim bulbs, unify voices, all single instruments. Exultate, shooting stars drift over holy snow. Domine, anyone who does not give up all he has cannot be silent. Blind fingers turn beads, round, round, measure distance between sin and salvation. Savior of grace, monastic, pure, former trappings unclean, forbidden. Momentary, the truth is salt of cold, dark grains, solitary and still. Hallways echo rustling robes and shuffling leather soles on centuries of worn wood. Tunnels shaped like loaves of bread, crusted with keyholes, thick and rusty. Doors slam through the night, lock out the lonely sound of heartbeats. All the clocks stopped in 1945. They never speak to each other. They taste words, bitter and destined to be swallowed. Domine, anyone who does not give up all he has cannot be silent. Today's work is 100 years of monks, a few pieces left to polish before they sleep. Remember, speak only to the cats who wait for curdled milk after supper. Try not to think too hard. All wheels squeak after misuse. Muslin and shapeless wool will not secure this eternal vow. Silence, no easy practice for humans. Domine. Anyone who does not give up all he has cannot be silent. Open windows, breathe. Let go the scream that waits just inside the soul, the one that tells the world, you are alive. Thank you so much. I knew that was waiting to happen.
Do you want me to take it up?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
And I have one more, and this one I'm so proud to have in World of Change. When the call came out to write something about what you wanted to see in the world, how I heard the call was, what do you want to see changed in the world, or what have we been impacted by most recently that's really sort of caught your spirit, caught your heart, caught your head, and made you just want to shake your fist in the air. And this was what did it for me. And very quickly, I want to run through the questions. Why did you write this poem? That was what I was asked, and I'll read some of this to you. I wrote this poem out of frustration at the overwhelming disregard by the banks, mortgage lenders, and investors for the sanctuary that is one's home. I continue to be shocked at the callous treatment of those who've lost their jobs, businesses, spouses, retirement, health, and wound up begging for the very roof over their heads. It truly makes no difference, the circumstance. The answer is always the same. Don't know when you'll know. Your papers are being processed. I feel that people and paperwork are all mixed together in a soup until the flavors become indistinguishable. In one fell swoop, millions of Americans were rolled into one and shamed into feeling like freeloaders. The elderly, infirmed, families with small children, and anyone asking for help to hang onto their home was treated disrespectfully. No kind words and no real help. God bless the American dream. All across America. We gotta catch our breath, hear me? We gotta. I suppose we could have seen it coming. People out of work, get unemployment, make half what it takes to pay the bills, too many houses in foreclosure. Lights turned off, neighbors take pity, string electric cord over the fence, the kids inside cheer, turn on the TV, the wife microwaves dinner that very night. But this is personal for Mike. Mike's up at 6, been doing this for 16 years now, calls it his habit. Walks the dog before breakfast, kisses the kids awake, makes coffee. These days, quick shower and out the door, spends his morning hours in parking lots, chews gum to avoid smoking, stands out of his truck at 7:45 a.m., waits at the entrance till 8, lets the workers enter first, holds the door for the ladies, always. Always stands politely at the counter, thanks the generic receptionist with an application in hand for the job du jour. Longer walk back to the truck. Finds a drive-through coffee and heads to the lake. Mike's been heading there since he was 9. Went every day the summer his folks split. It's where he sorts things out. Lately, the answers are AWOL. He's ashamed of himself. His family lives on starches, bread and noodles, doles out milk over cereal from a bag. Last month, the doc gave him 2 months of Ambien. Instead of sleeping, he saved 45 pills. Now it's just a matter of when he'll do it. But can't be next week, his son's birthday, maybe the week after. If his wife's sister is in town, she'd need that kind of support. I wonder what takes a man there, makes him desperate. Do the fat cats know? Who'll remove their blinders, take them on a tour of the suburbs, all those empty houses? Man, the middle class is bleeding. Look at us here tonight. What do we know of each other? Who among us is sick, homeless, hungry? Who needs a pair of shoes, gas money? Who needs a willing ear, an open heart? We're all flesh and blood, born into a tribe of our own. That's why isolation pains so very much. Damn it, there are people suffering all around. Guess they haven't heard. We're heading up and out of this recession. They're worried. Money's run out, time is running out, and hope has been kidnapped, like Chiron Horman after the school science fair, and hope may never be found again either. I've been waiting 40 years, waiting for the revolution. I had faith once. Then the Watts riots and the one after Rodney King, when African Americans looted and burned the neighborhoods, that much anger and grief has to hurt something. I thought they'd get justice by revolt. Told my friends, join up or shut up. Remember long lines at gas stations? Ronald Reagan, AIDS, conflicts in little countries with minor dictators, Bush Sr. in charge, Clinton reduced debt, W brought it back, spent wildly on war, forgot about the families in Cincinnati, Mobile, Yakima, who'd lost everything. This is crazy. I remember my Depression-era uncles saying, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. No, the tough feel whipped. Folks ain't whining to get attention, they're scared. Want someone to notice, want someone to do something about it. The guy putting $2 worth of gas in his gas tank says, we're all going down. It's just a matter of time, just like what happened to the people left in New Orleans. He looks at me right in my eye and says, this ain't a benign concern. This here is terminal. Thank you very much.
Before I introduce our next reader, I just wanted to tell you a little bit more about these two books. They're writers from all over in the country in the book, but because it was published on the West Coast, there's a fair amount of well-known California writers here. Some of the names that you might be familiar with: David Meltzer, Neely Cherkovsky. Of course, Terry and Michael are in here, who I mentioned earlier. Philip Hackett, Leah Lubin, A.D. Winans. It's really a great, both of them are really pretty great, and we do have them here if you'd like to pick up a copy. And I hope that New Way Media will continue. They've done several festivals out there that are wonderful, and I participated in some of that. And I hope that they will continue to put out anthologies like this one. So one of the things that's really slightly unusual or awkward about being a poet is bios. And so the way that I usually handle them is to ignore them and just try to speak from the heart. I could certainly do that with our next reader because she is a friend and she really is an important part of this community, but I also wanted to acknowledge who she is and what she's done by reading her bio, because I think you should hear it. Eileen Davis Elliott is the author of 2 books of poetry, Prodigal Cowgirl and Miles of Pies. Her work reflects long-held interest in multicultural themes about conflict and tolerance, appreciation, and bewilderment. Humankind continues to fascinate and challenge her attempts to represent situations and solutions in written and visual forms. She thinks she asks more questions than she can ever answer. And Eileen is also a really fantastic visual artist, so we're just really happy to have her here tonight and have her as a part of this. And she is also one of the authors with poems in both of these books that we were talking about. So please welcome Eileen Davis Elliott.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to be a part of a world-around organization that is extremely special to me. I'm going to skip around a little bit from topic to topic because, as Christopher said, there's a lot of topics that I'm wondering about and thinking about. This first poem is inspired by a workshop I did with Christopher in April, and it was inspired by the work of Naomi Shahid Nye, and it was a poem about peace, how long peace takes. And Christopher challenged us to write something about something else that stirs us, that moves us. So I wrote this. How long hunger takes. As long as no one sees that subdivisions are garden plots. As long as meat means entitlement and reward. As long as commerce travels upward on additive lies. As long as stomachs are distended and eyes are fever glistened. As long as fields are fired to advance other causes. As long as men count wives and children as a God-given right, as many as possible. As long as no house makes you subject to arrest. As long as Hollywood makes photo ops out of Turkey Day volunteerism. As long as a leafy green salad takes half the paycheck and 2 bus transfers. As long as body and spirit have a disconnect. If no one notices how many school children show up just at lunchtime during summer school, that's how long hunger takes. I have a second poem that it includes actually 2 things. It includes the issues of prostitution and economic issues for women. And it also includes Native American population. I worked on an Indian reservation in Montana, and I come from South Dakota, so I have firsthand experience about both of those places. And this is a story about a young woman who was in the Sioux tribe and what happened to her. Her Indian name was Lost Bird. Lost Bird of the Wounded Knee Massacre. Gunsmoke still drifts. Dogs howl, fall to a whimper. The massacre of the Minneconjou Lakota in the snow by command of General Miles. One babe stirs, somehow grabs survival, shielded by mother, 4 days, 3 nights in a hollow, spared by a shovel detail of soldiers who buried 150 trophies in one ugly grave. The trench a slice down the vein of the people, prairie cut open and blood left running into the creek of Wounded Knee. Old Lakota woman named the child Zinkala Nuni, lost bird. The babe, snatched by a general who rode with Maximilian, had Civil War medals. He was a seeker of curios, interesting amusements, a gift of spite for a suffragette wife who needed a motherly distraction from her writings of newspaper columns suggesting women vote. The name Zinkala Nuni became long and too foreign. She was called Zinta instead. She became too much everything and not enough anything. She belonged nowhere, taunted by dirty little savage, spent sad hours riding carousel horses, pulled off in protest as dusk fell away. At 10, she started asking questions about Indians, watched her Lakotas in dance reviews, chastised by her mother who criticized sharply, not a suitable way to parade their savagery. Visit back to the creek, no longer running red, the Indian heart now shriveled. It's me, lost bird, Zinka Lanham, please help me, she called. What could she do when nobody answered? Back to the city. A Wild West show, silent movie bit parts, a husband, another. The love disease, syphilis, destroyed her vision. She could not lace her moccasins as she paraded the planks, the wooden boards of the Barbary Coast. She was buried there at age 25. She lay waiting in California for 71 years until the people learned of her gravesite, brought her back to Pine Ridge. Wounded Knee brought her home. They made a ceremony of releasing spirit, covered Lost Bird with the soil of her birth, marked her last place with an honorable talisman, an eagle feather hung on a wild cherry tree. The warrior song trilled for bravery, loud enough to drown out the howls of the ancients, long enough for Lakota blood to run red. I too am really honored to be included in these collections. I think it's wonderful when people in the writing and publishing world do things because it's the right thing to do, not with so much of a notice about the bottom line. And I'm just so thrilled that these right things have been done, and we've had an opportunity to participate in them. And I thank both David and David for those efforts. I'm going to have to take a minute because it looks like my marker is moved here. I think I maybe didn't put it in the first place. The cause that I feel near and dear to my heart that I wanted to write about is autism. It is a very personal issue for me. We've worked with autism in our immediate family for a number of years, and I'm very thrilled with the process. I'm also, that has come about this hard work, and I'm also very thrilled that much of this poem isn't quite true anymore because it was written a while ago and there's been so much progress. When I started being a psychologist, we never even heard of autism. Then we heard, oh, there's probably maybe 150 per 1,000 births. Then it went down to 1 in 88 children, and now we're looking at 1 in 66. So there's something going on in the world that is harming our children. It behooves us to look at this much more carefully than we're doing. This is about being in a household with autism. It's called Sleeping with One Eye Open. Sleep is a commodity this household can't afford, though it's found down the block in luxurious supply. An easy possibility for neighbors. The double income, no kids, 2-story house, with tinted topiaries, carefully trimmed to exactness, owned by the innocents who kiss and tuck each other in after dessert and espresso and long evening conversations about next year we will. They still have dreams. In our house, sleep supply is crimped by circumstance. The boy remains awake, cannot surrender to his healing, calming friend. After sweet baths, temperature just so, comforts of cartoon washcloths and water, to many hours of rocking and walking, he struggles still. Rest, when it comes up, is delivered in small packets, battered and dinged like a returned item no longer whole from a clearance sale. Cuddled by parents with eyes greeny, already irritated by the day of work, who recall the outside world's water cooler conversations with their unwritten, steely expectations of topics, calibrated rules where humans with common pain must bear the burden of profound silence, not speak about what is most important. Sharing worries is not on any job description. So this house must always stay awake or sleep with one eye open. One never knows when the specter in the closet will emerge and once again wake the house and trash bedclothes and rend the silence of pre-dawn emptiness of neighborhood streets. And we also have a collaborative poem that we want to present, and I don't know, would you like to do that?
Oh yeah, whatever.
Okay. Yeah, let's go ahead. If that's all, is that all right?
You want me to pass these out?
Yeah, let's. I guess I better come get the collaborative poem.
Oh, then it's really collaborative.
A topic that has been of interest to many of us has been the child sex trafficking trade, and this poem is about that topic. And we've taken kind of a wide range, world-type view, as well as small incidents here and there. And we've developed a refrain that we hope everybody will join in when we, ask you to read this choral reading aloud. And hopefully that means that one more step is being achieved through this 100,000 Poets of Change, because you all will be involved in reading this. Basically, it's a prayer.